from the New York Times. Aaron Wasserman, thank you for joining us.
Hey, great to be here, Steve.
Just to begin with, tell us a little bit about the R&D space at the Times.
Yeah, so the R&D team at the Times lives inside the newsroom. We've been around for this iteration of R&D at the Times has been around for about 3 years. And the last 2 years have really been defining for us in our ability to go really deep on emerging technologies that could have very large impacts for the Times long term. We're really set up to invest in the things that could be the biggest opportunity areas for the Times in the future as a publisher and as a business. Those technologies look like machine learning, 5G, spatial computing, and we're set up in a way that allows us to invest in those technologies without being on the treadmill of news. And that's really what defines us within the newsroom. If you walk around the newsroom and you kind of go grab a random person and you ask them what they're working on, they're going to tell you that they're focused on some type of editorial direction. I'm working on our Olympics coverage, or I'm working on an investigative piece. Maybe it publishes tomorrow, maybe it publishes a year down the road. But with our team, we're not focused on a specific coverage area. We're not focused on a specific story that has a target publish date. We're focused on developing capabilities that can change the type of journalism that we're able to create. So new techniques for news gathering, new techniques for storytelling. Yeah.
Thanks for that introduction, Aaron. So this year, our challenge focused on applications of spatial computing and immersive tech for journalism. Let's start by defining that. How would you explain spatial computing and immersive tech in your field?
Well, going back almost 2 years now, the Times has done quite a bit with pioneering the field of 3D journalism and working on pieces of storytelling that could be viewed within camera. So AR journalism. And that started about 18 months ago with our Olympics coverage, our Winter Olympics coverage. We published a few pieces that enabled you to look at the mechanics of US Olympic athletes in your space. So there were these amazing pieces of Nathan Chen doing a triple axel, and there was a Lindsey Vonn volumetric video piece that we published. And throughout 2018, we published, I think, 13 pieces of AR journalism. They were built with ARKit and AR Core, and were able to be viewed through the New York Times app. And whether or not those pieces were, AR pieces, or they were pieces that were captured, using photogrammetry or volumetric video, almost all those pieces were features, and they were singular objects that you could view inside of your space. And so all of that work lived on the graphics desk, and that was incredible work that was done by our graphics desk and by our immersive journalism team. And so what R&D has been focused on is trying to think about what the world might look like, where it wasn't just about us creating these 3D individual features, but where the New York Times becomes more of a contextual layer over the entire world. And it's not about us publishing one piece of 3D journalism once a month or even once a week, but where our content has to manifest in 3 dimensions. Our content has to manifest spatially on a much more regular basis. And maybe that's not even, an intentional thing, right? That's the same way we don't think about the fact that we're publishing an article on the web anymore. That's just sort of the default. What are the new defaults in a spatial world? And how can we build the systems for the future that enable our journalists to publish content in 2 dimensions and in 3 dimensions, sort of all at the same time? So it's a pretty wide space for us. We look at it from many different angles, but it's really with an eye towards the future, where the interfaces that our readers are consuming our content through have evolved quite a bit. So we're not necessarily looking, the graphics desk and the immersive journalists that are on the graphics desk are still looking for those opportunities to do 3D storytelling. We published a piece, I think last week, about the effect of a cough and how widely the water particles, droplets from a cough, proliferate through your space, and why 6 feet is sort of a good average distance to stay away from people. That's sort of the near-term 3D journalism. And what we're working on is much more speculative stuff. How does the world change? How will the world be different in 18 months, 24 months, 36 months?
So, it's funny, when we talk at the Media Lab about COVID-19 and how it's impacting the space that we work in, one of the things that we come back to a lot is that things are accelerating, change is accelerating. And I think about my interactions with the Times, which frankly in the past has been a read in the morning, a listen to a podcast in the morning, and then a read in the evening. And now I'm in and out of the Times all day long. And so I assume that the time on site and the time on the app and consumption of Times content is going up dramatically as people look for good information. Is there an emerging tech piece that you're particularly excited about in terms of kind of the accelerated future of journalism?
Yeah, I think there's a number of them. I think that a lot of the things that we, the way that R&D breaks up our work is into what we call them pods, which are discrete exploration areas that we've built engineering and design teams around. And two of the areas that we're most excited about now have to do with natural language processing and ways that the interaction models, sort of as you're talking about, where you're kind of dipping in and out of a relationship with the Times, might evolve over time. One of our big sort of white whale as an R&D team is enabling the Times to answer your questions, right? To start thinking about our content differently. Instead of our content being these large unstructured articles, how can we use machine learning to reform the way that our content is stored, maybe more as nuggets, like answers to questions and answers, and how can we create many, many more endpoints for readers to access that information. So that's one of the things that we've been working on that we're really excited about, and that we think has really direct applications to the way that folks have been interacting with coronavirus content on the Times. As the story evolves, the questions change, and trying to figure out how we can most efficiently answer those questions and most empathetically answer those questions for readers is a real big focus. If you look at our coronavirus coverage right now, you'll notice that it's sort of FAQ after FAQ. We're updating those answers as the story develops, and trying to figure out a way that we can do that more effectively for our readers has been a big focus of R&D.